Get started. Welcome to the library. My name is Troy Swanson. I'm the library department chair. This is our first event in our one book series on the book We Believe You. It's about campus sexual assault, which is an important topic that we're going to spend a year looking at different aspects of it. And we hope to educate our students, to make some difference in the world, and make awareness on how we can be advocates, protect ourselves, and just do better as a college and as a society. If you have not read the book or you're interested in the book, we have copies for you to check out, and there's also copies for sale in the bookstore. We encourage you to take some time and read it and join in our conversations this year. I'd like to thank Sharon and Suzanne from counseling for their time and expertise on this, and I will turn it over to them.
Thank you. Thanks, Troy. Hi, everyone. How are you? Thanks for coming. We realize some of you are here for class. Some of you are here out of your choice, so we appreciate that. My name is Sharon Brennan. I'm a counselor in the Counseling and Career Development Department. I've been on campus about 10 years working to raise awareness with my wonderful colleague right next to me.
Hi everyone, my name is Suzanne Nasser, and I too work in the counseling department, which by the way is the coolest department on campus. If you haven't visited us, the resources that we provide all of you are career counseling. So if you're an undecided student, please come and see us for career counseling. We offer educational counseling, things like test-taking strategies. If you don't have any study skill sets, we can help you build those study skill sets. And of course, we offer personal counseling. So if any of you are impacted today by the information and the discussion that we're having, please come and see us in the counseling department. Our home is in the S building, the second floor. Two of my colleagues will be joining us today momentarily, Teresa and Gloria, who are also counselors. And so when they come in, I might point them out so that if you need to see them during the presentation or one of us after the presentation, and then we can walk to our office and talk and process the information that we are sharing today, okay? So there's really so much that we could have packed in today's workshop, and we're really thankful to the One Book, One College Committee, to Troy and to Tish and others for giving us the One Book, One College as a vehicle, as a platform to talk about the many issues that fall under the umbrella of sexual assault and sexual violence. So today you're going to get a glimpse of some of the things that this is a glimpse of some of the things that we are going to cover, but like Troy mentioned, we have a year's worth of activities, of workshops, panels, so please come through. The majority of them are taking place here in the library. Check out the One Book, One College website through the library's website, and we hope to see you throughout the year. So if there are some things that we didn't touch on today, it's because we have the opportunity to touch on them again throughout the year. So to help set the tone for this topic, we want to start off with this brief video, public service announcement, if you will, that we created several years ago now. And we really couldn't have pulled this video off without the cross-campus collaboration and the support that we received from students, faculty and staff, and administration. So we want to go ahead and play that.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To change the way we talk about women.
To be part of the solution and not part of the problem.
To recognize if a woman can't or doesn't consent to sex, it's rape.
It's on us to create an environment where everyone feels safe.
To keep an eye on someone in a vulnerable situation.
It's on us to get in the way before it happens.
To let our friends know what is and what isn't acceptable.
To stand up to those who tell us it's not our business.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
All of us.
All of us.
All of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
So I do encourage you all to visit the itsonus.org website. You see, we actually did not plan this, but we've been working together for so long that these things just happen. I failed to mention, both of us actually failed to mention in our introduction that prior to coming to Moraine Valley, I've been here almost 10 years. Sharon, you're going on
It's over 10.
Over
Going on
10,
11, I
almost
guess.
11 years now. But prior to coming here, we both worked together predominantly with survivors of domestic violence, but we also worked with survivors of sexual assault in a not-for-profit social service agency. And so we brought just a little bit of that expertise with us here to campus. So please do consider visiting the itsonus.org website. They have an abundance of information for all of you as students, so I encourage you to check it out. I also want to highlight, sorry, Gloria, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I mentioned that counselors will be here with us today. Gloria is here, and my other colleague, Teresa, will be making her way over. In setting the tone for this topic and this discussion, we want to look at some ground rules and some safe space ground rules. The most important, of course, and you all, if your instructors are using the We Believe You book in their classrooms, they too should be setting some ground rules up for discussion. And of course, the most obvious one should be that we are discussing this topic in a respectful environment, one that takes into account that everyone's opinion matters and that we understand we all have different and individual perspectives, and we need to respect those perspectives and use those moments as teachable opportunities as well. Another way to set the tone for this topic is to look at how language matters, because the way we talk about sexual assault, the way we write about sexual assault matters, right? So using gender-neutral pronouns, they, their, or other neutral pronouns instead of he or she, unless of course you're looking at or discussing specific experiences, it would be most acceptable and appropriate to use gender-neutral pronouns. The terms victim and survivor are really used interchangeably, okay? You'll hear some folks say victim of sexual assault, survivor of domestic violence, okay? And so we want to keep in mind that survivors are always the experts in their own experiences, in their identity, and in their language preferences. So if you have a friend, a classmate, a relative that is confiding in you about their experience as a survivor, you really want to listen closely to the language that they are using and then reflect that language back to them, okay? Although survivor is typically the preferred term when discussing those who have experienced sexual violence, some individuals may prefer the term victim to survivor. Again, pay attention to the language they're using and try to reflect that language back to them. One of the simplest ways, and Sharon's going to talk more about this later in the presentation, about what it means to be a bystander, what it means to be an upstander. And although I don't want to minimize the amount of courage that it takes to do these things, if you hear someone trivializing rape, making an offensive joke, okay, about sexual assault or domestic violence, you really, again, want to use this as a teachable opportunity and kind of call them out on what they're saying and how they're trivializing these really sensitive topics and these important issues. We want to think critically about the media's messages about sexual assault. So the next time you're watching the news, pay attention again to the language. There are journalists out there who substitute the word sex for rape as if they're the same thing. So let's pay attention to that and think critically about that.
Before I go on, I just thought I'd also point out we have another counselor that I'm seeing in the audience. Sorry, we've got Amal Jarad over here. She's also an integral member of our committee and helps do this work on campus, so thanks for joining. Sorry we didn't notice you. Thank you. So if we're going to talk about sexual assault, and Suzanne alluded to some of this, we need to be clear about what it is. And what is the definition? Sexual assault is any type of sexual contact or behavior that occurs without the explicit consent of the recipient. So any type means it can be a number of things. Yes, it is rape, but it also includes attempted rape. It includes touching, fondling, molestation, incest, different forms of penetration, and all of the touching and the penetration, all of those things, it's about it being in a sexual way, obviously, and it can be above clothing or underneath clothing. So sometimes when we say sexual assault, we automatically assume it only means rape. It includes a lot of other things, okay? So we need to be mindful of that and know that. Also, that even though it can take many different forms, okay, everyone's experience can be very different, it is never the victim's fault. It is never the victim's fault. So much like one of the individuals in the It's On Us video said, as you'll hear us say and attend to several times in this presentation, it is never the victim's fault. Okay? So why do we need to know more about this, right? How does this pertain to us as a college campus, as a greater society, as individuals going out into the world? What we don't know about, we can't do anything about. Okay, so let's look at some numbers here. 1 in 5 women are sexually assaulted while in college. 1 in 16 men are sexually assaulted while in college. 1 in 4 transgender students have experienced sexual assault since enrolling in college. So what I want you to think about when you hear this, when you hear these numbers and you hear these statistics, what does that mean for you? How do you relate to those statistics? How do your loved ones relate to those statistics? How do your friends and family relate to those statistics? How do your classmates relate to those statistics? How do the people you're passing on campus, right? And then additionally, more than 90% of sexual assault victims on college campuses do not report the assault. And by that they mean like they don't report it to the police or they don't report it to the administration at the school. They may talk to their friends, they may disclose in a survey, but they're not bringing it to the next level. And there are reasons for that, right? 90%. So I want to ask you a question, okay? And don't yell out your answers. I enjoy enthusiasm, but try and hold it for a minute, okay? What's the one thing you cannot have sex without? Think. We've got a little video that we're going to show you here, and then I'll talk to you about what maybe went through your mind.
You can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
So we really do like that It's On Us campaign, don't we? It gives so many wonderful messages. And this is short and sweet and to the point, right? The one thing you can't have sex without is consent. Now, when we first started doing this presentation, we would hear a lot of different responses, and they're good answers, right? So maybe some of you thought protection. Maybe some of you thought another person, okay? Those are judgment calls. Okay, I might have an opinion either way. However, it's only sex if you have consent, because sex without consent is rape. Okay, that is the basic, that's the bottom line. And as you recall from the definition, I didn't skip past that, I was going to get back to it, that sexual assault is any form of sexual contact without the explicit consent of the individual or the recipient. Okay? So let's look at consent a little bit more clearly. Then how do we know we've gotten it, right? We have to get it, we need it, so what is it? Consent is active, meaning it is ongoing. It's not just once, it's not just one yes and then you move on and you're good to go throughout. It's constantly checking in, it's constantly getting a yes. Maybe not like every second, but you know, as you progress through the stages of your activity, the mutually agreed upon activity, you're checking in with your partner and you're getting it ongoing, active consent. It's clear and knowing. There is no question and there is no doubt about the person's situation, their stance, their opinion, their feelings. Okay? If you're asking someone if this is okay, are you into this? And they're like, that's not consent. That's like, okay, let's wait. Because that's not knowing. And that's not clear. Right? The voluntary, it's without coercion. There's no emotional pressure. There's no physical pressure. There's no force. You're there because you want to be, and you can stop and leave at any time. Okay, voluntary. And then also it's words, actions, and permission. Okay, so words, action, permission, and consent. What would be a great example of a word that gives permission? And now you can say it if you know it. What do you think? Yes, yes. And you want it enthusiastic, and you want it clear. And you want to know, yes, they want it as much as I do. Yes, they are into this as much as I am. Yes, we can keep going forward. Okay, then there's no doubt. And it's active, it's ongoing, and it gives you permission to go to the next part. Okay, very important. Don't be shy. Don't be shy with that word. Okay.
So again, obviously it's very important. We have a number of slides on consent, and we just want to be clear that affirmative consent, as Sharon has been saying, is the presence of a yes for sex to be legally considered consensual, as opposed to simply the absence of a no, right? So the bottom line, folks, is you want to only have sex with people who actively want to have sex with you. Are we cool with that? We get our message across? Yeah, okay. So consent is sexy. You see us wearing our It's On Us shirts, hopefully soon, and there are still some left in the bookstore, and hopefully soon we'll be getting some Consent is Sexy shirts in the bookstore as well. This is basically a catchy phrase, a mantra, if you will. It's a violence prevention effort, so a term that was coined to really get people excited about giving and receiving consent. It's to do exactly what we're doing right here in this space, right? To get us to begin the conversation about what consent is and what it consists of. This is not to say, some people mistaken that consent is sexy like it's optional. It's not. Consent is always mandatory, right? We can't have a conversation about sexual violence without unpacking what rape culture is. And the issues of domestic violence and the issues of sexual assault continue to exist because of cultural and societal attitudes, because of institutions and laws that unfortunately are just not consistent in naming this violence as wrong, okay? Rape culture is a term that was coined here in the US in the 1970s by feminists. And it was designed to show the ways in which society blamed survivors of sexual violence and normalized sexual assault. You'll see on the slide here what rape culture consists of, and these are just some examples that we can fit on this slide. There's many more. But rape culture includes jokes, like when people describe losing a sports game like getting totally raped. We talked about being an upstander and using that as a teachable moment, right? When people are trivializing rape or are making jokes, okay? So we want to be mindful and listen to the language that our peers and our friends are using. It's things like publicly scrutinizing a survivor's dress, mental state, and history. And again, Sharon's going to unpack this a little bit more in a minute. It's assuming that men don't get raped or that only weak men get raped. Rape culture includes news outlets that fail rape survivors by questioning what the individual was wearing, asking, why are they reporting now? Or the timing of the report is a little suspicious. How often have we heard that? It's aligning themselves with the alleged perpetrator with saying things like, but they've got their whole life ahead of them. This is going to ruin that perpetrator's career or education. So what all these things do is make violence against individuals seem so normal that people begin to believe that rape is inevitable or that rape is the survivor's fault. Victim blaming is another form of rape culture. And really, it's the greatest barrier to holding rapists accountable and giving survivors the critical support that they need. Victim blaming is dangerous because it marginalizes the survivor and it makes it harder for that individual to come forward and to report the abuse. Victim blaming attitudes also reinforce what the abuser has been saying all along, which is that it's the survivor's fault. The role of alcohol and sexual assault comes up often, and I think Gail Stern put it perfectly when she said, I'm responsible for what I do when I'm drinking. I am not responsible for what other people choose to do to me when I'm drinking. Again, it becomes another form of victim blaming, right? Oftentimes, we hear that when a person has disclosed that they were raped at a party, they're commonly asked if they were drinking at the time. And instead of asking these questions, we need to really take a look at how this, again, is a victim blaming statement that implies that they asked for it somehow, or deserved it for not being sober, or for not drinking responsibly.
Victim blaming really plays a major part, as you'll hear us talk about. It's a thread that's unfortunate through so many of these misconceptions and myths that we're now going to be covering. And it definitely plays a part here. Because a common misconception about sexual assault is that people lie, right? They're lying. They wanted it. I saw you wanted their attention. Now you just want their money, okay? You feel bad. You don't want people to think that you're blank or a blank. You're trying to cover up. The misconception is that people lie. And we hear that, as Suzanne mentioned. It's in every thread of rape culture. When the media is covering a sexual assault case, we hear all these things. And then you hear them interview somebody who is putting into question the survivor's story. When in fact, false reports of sexual assault are no more common. They are no more common than any other report of a felony crime. So when you're listening to the news and you're hearing stories about all these other crimes and all the other victims that are being impacted and the ways, the negative, the terrible things that happen to people, and it happens to be a felony crime, are you questioning that person? Like, well, they left their door unlocked. They deserve to get beat to a pulp or whatever the awful story is on the news. We don't do that. But for some reason with sexual assault, that tends to be the inclination at times. Right? But it is no more common. False reports make up only 2 to 8% of the reports received of sexual assault. Okay? Which means that when we jump to the conclusion that people are lying, we are not realizing that 98 to 92% of those stories are true. You know, yes, people do make up stories. People do not always tell the truth. But this is not the situation in which we lean towards assuming that they're lying. When we do that, we are not protecting individuals' experiences. We are not respecting those, and we are in turn supporting the perpetrator. We're protecting the perpetrator in our society. Because of this inclination to think that rape is, or people are lying, that is part of why that 90% of college students don't report. And that is also why across the country, 63% of sexual assaults go underreported because of the concern and the feeling that they're not going to be supported when they tell their story. Wearing revealing clothing, behaving provocatively, or drinking a lot means the victim was asking for it, right? The way you were dressed, I mean, everyone knows you wanted it. Or I saw you getting hammered there at the party. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? All the victim blaming, all those statements. When in actuality, that is not the case, right? The other thing to keep in mind, that when we talk about wearing revealing clothing, we all had a picture of who that sexual assault victim was in our mind. Who did you picture? Anyone care to share? Anyone picture a woman telling that story? When the statistics show that women are not the only victims of sexual assault. So this doesn't hold true. It doesn't cover everybody, right? It only explains this part of the number. It doesn't involve everybody. Don't tell me how to dress. Tell them not to rape. The only risk factor present is the presence of a rapist. It is not my clothing. The presence of the rapist is the risk factor present. Additionally, we need to remember that the perpetrator is choosing to violate, to rape, to assault. And just as we mentioned earlier, I'm responsible for what I do, but I am not responsible for what others do to me. The person did not fight back, or they never said no. So it's kind of an older train of thought we're moving towards. When we focus on consent, it really helps to combat this a little bit, right? Because it's not about having to say no. No can sound different, it can look different, and everyone responds differently. You know, if I don't laugh at all the same things as you, and if I don't like all the same foods, why in this traumatic situation must we all be expected to respond the same way? We can't be. And we don't know how we're going to respond until we are in that situation, until we're in that experience. So we can't just assume that if you didn't say no, then it wasn't rape. No can look a lot of different ways. Whoops. But instead of, did I hear my partner say no, ask yourself, did I hear my partner say yes? If you read the We Believe You book, you'll read so many people's individual experiences. And one really stood out to me just for this reason, all of them for different reasons. But the survivor was talking about how they were cognitively saying to themselves in the moment, why am I not screaming? Because you can't control and predict the way you're going to respond in a traumatic event.
This is me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what happened? Okay, I'll have you take over. All right. So we should make no mistake. Sexual assault does not discriminate based on age, based on ethnicity, socioeconomic status, or sexual orientation. The LGBTQI people experience violence at the same and sometimes higher rates than the non-LGBTQI people, but they really have fewer resources to meet their needs that are specifically tailored to address their needs. One of the ways to meet the needs of the LGBTQI community, in my opinion, is to intentionally bring them into the conversation and into the discussion, because I feel like too often they are left out of the discourse, okay? It's important to note the impact sexual violence has on people of color and other marginalized groups, because communities of color and the LGBTQI community already face institutionalized racism and oppression that has created additional barriers for them as survivors of sexual assault or domestic violence. And so because of the racism these groups have experienced, it could very well prevent them or cause them to have some distrust in the institutions that are designed to serve as a resource for them. So when we think about the resources that survivors turn to, that they access for support in the aftermath of a sexual assault, we see them going to hospitals for support. We see them going to the police station possibly to make a report. We see them accessing services in the courthouse, perhaps to secure an order of protection or to file a report against their perpetrator. And so, unfortunately, and quite frankly, these institutions haven't always been friendly. We can also make the argument that they still are not friendly, and they're not the safest people for marginalized people. They're not the safest places for marginalized people. People of color and people from the LGBTQI community may be treated with less respect or less priority than white people. They may face even more victim blaming. They may face more disbelief than white people when accessing services at these resources or accessing services at these institutions. So again, it's important for us to take note of these vulnerabilities for community of color survivors and other marginalized groups because it can impact whether or not they're getting help, and it can also affect and impact their recovery process. And we're going to talk about recovery, and we're going to talk about reactions in a minute. I think now maybe. Oh, statistics, yes. So we see here how sexual assault impacts the LGBTQI community. We're going to have on November 9th some folks and staff from the Center on Halstead right here in the library. So if this is a topic that is of interest to you, please come through on November 9th. These staff folks are going to talk about how they meet the needs of the LGBTQI community, the services that they offer, and how this issue specifically impacts that population. So you see here 1 in 4 transgender students have experienced sexual assault since enrolling in college. Approximately 13%, 1 in 8 lesbians, nearly half of bisexual women have been raped in their lifetime, nearly half of bisexual men, and 4 in 10 gay men have experienced sexual violence other than rape in their lifetime. So numbers and statistics are good to look at, and they're just as important to look at as how do individuals respond or react to a sexual assault. I think that there's this expectation, and Sharon touched on this a bit, for some people of how a survivor should be after an assault. It's like we have this image of how a survivor should react to the violation, and if the image we hold in our mind doesn't match what we're seeing from that survivor, it may create a sense of disbelief, and it may create a sense of doubt, right? In reality, a survivor's response to their assault is just as unique as they are. So in the counseling department, we've seen students who come right after an assault to talk about it and process what happened to them. We've seen students who've waited weeks, months, some who have waited years to tell their story. Some come in and are in shock, they're in disbelief, they're angry. They're trying to make sense of what happened to them. We find this, I think, to be especially true of those students that were assaulted by someone they knew, a friend, perhaps someone that they were in a dating relationship, because that sense of betrayal is so huge. So the anger is there, the disbelief, the sense of the trust is gone, right? Some come in and they're feeling ashamed, they're feeling confused, overwhelmed, and afraid. We have a resource table here. Please feel free to come up and pick up the resources. Share them with your loved ones, your peers here on campus, because one of the things that we can do, that we do in the counseling office, is help survivors cope with these range of emotions that they're dealing with. So what we want to do now is quickly take a look at what are some of the things we can say, what's some of the language that we can use if a family member or a classmate or a friend is disclosing to us, is sharing with us that they're a survivor. You know, in my opinion, survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence are probably some of the bravest people, the strongest people that I've ever met. And it's on us, right, to help support one another and to be prepared with statements of empathy and support, and to make sure we know where to send them here on campus. So saying something as simple yet as powerful as "I believe you" goes a long way. Okay?
Saying to somebody who's disclosing to you about their sexual assault that it is not your fault. And maybe even remind them of that more than once, right? Remind them that you are responsible for you, but you are not responsible for what others do to you. It's not your fault.
Acknowledging that the experience has dramatically changed their life is also really important. Survivors of sexual assault are going to go through a range of emotions, but they're also going to go through different stages. Sexual assault impacts the way you all do academically here on campus. It impacts what happens to you on the job and how you function on the job. It impacts and interferes with your relationships with your loved ones at home, right? So acknowledging, right, that it impacts you in all these different areas is really, acknowledging to them that it's impacting their life is also super important.
So when you can say to somebody that this doesn't change how I feel about you, and this doesn't change who you are to me, after such a traumatic incident, you'll read in the book, if you choose to read the book, or you've heard from friends, this sense of just feeling like you're disconnected from your identity. You're in disbelief. You don't know what happened. You don't know who you are. How did this come to be? And so to say to somebody confidently and caringly that this doesn't change how I think about you. You're still the same important person to me today that you were yesterday and the day before. Can be really powerful.
So again, we've talked about how difficult it is for survivors to come forward and share their experience or trust us with what happened to them. So saying things to them like, "Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for sharing this with me," goes a long way. Again, it helps with their recovery process. It helps them feel centered and grounded and supported.
Looking at someone when they feel just totally alone in the world, like, how did I get to be here? And saying, you are not alone. And your willingness to sit and be with them and hear them is powerful, and to remind them and to be there and to let them tell you, if they have to tell you more than once, that you are not alone.
There are people here that can help you. So arming ourselves, right, with resources on campus, resources off campus, looking at how we can be upstanders. We're going to take a look at that right now. But please pick up, again, the information here on the table. Familiarize yourself with our services in the counseling department, taking a look at who our Title IX investigator is here on campus, taking a look at the Code of Conduct Office, using the police as a resource. But always remember, it is the survivor's choice whether or not to use any or all of these resources. Our role, right, is to say to them, there are folks that can help you. Let me tell you who they are. There are resources on campus that you can turn to. Let's go there. Let me show you where they're located, where their offices are. But at the end of the day, it's their choice whether or not they want to come and see us in the counseling office, whether or not they want to open up a formal investigation through our Title IX investigator. Our role is to just give them the information, to supply them with it.
So another important resource, right, that we have to offer our loved ones, our friends, is ourselves. And we've talked about wonderful statements that we can say to help them feel empowered, to help you feel empowered, right, to at least know what you can do to say to help somebody. But additionally, we want to talk about bystander intervention. And really it's about being more than a bystander, being more than somebody who just lets a moment pass by. And Suzanne has mentioned this word a couple of times, being an upstander, somebody who steps up and steps in whatever way they're comfortable with, and we'll talk about those things. So bystander intervention, right? The act of someone intervening when they see a behavior or hear language that promotes domestic and sexual violence, right? It's knowing how and not allowing the moment, as I said, to get past you, to intervene in one way or another, to help eliminate and stop, whether it be that moment of domestic or sexual violence or future, okay? So we're going to show you a quick video. Well, it's quick, it's a few minutes. It is our longer video, but it's so powerful. It was created by the students at American University in Washington, D.C. The name of the video is Step Up, and it's about bystander intervention. And it doesn't only cover sexual assault or domestic violence. It covers a lot of other situations that we hear from college students as being similar to their experience. Okay? So whether it be now or later, you may find that you're in a similar experience, and it helps you to feel armed and equipped on ways to kind of intervene in that moment. Okay, here we go. Thank you.
We never think that terrible things will happen to us.
Transporting one to Sibley Hospital for alcohol poisoning.
Or to the people we know. The truth is, many students face issues, including alcohol abuse, dating violence, hazing, sexual assault, and mental health emergencies.
I have a 19-year-old male. I have no fault.
Many times we have the opportunity to prevent it, but we just don't notice until it's too late. But what if you could step up to make a difference?
Will you step up? First, notice that something is happening. Know what's going on around you.
Second, recognize that something is wrong. If something doesn't seem right, it probably isn't.
Third, take Take personal responsibility. If not you, then who?
4th, know how you can help. There are lots of ways that you can intervene.
Finally, step up to help using one of the 3 Ds. Direct, delegate, or distract. You could be the difference.
All night, baby.
Who's next? Who's next? Come on. Come on.
You can be direct if something doesn't seem right. Hey, I think you've had enough. Let's take a break and get you some water.
Someone standing right there, you acted like I didn't even exist. You're making me
You don't
have
do
no
anything.
freaking respect.
Hey, man. I don't think you should be yelling at her like that. Maybe you should take a walk. Are you all right?
Hey, Jonathan, are you coming out tonight?
No, I don't feel like doing anything. Or seeing anyone.
Oh, okay. I hope you feel better. I'll see you later. If you don't feel comfortable, or you don't know what to do, you can delegate. Ask someone else to get involved. Hey, can I talk to you? I'm really worried about Jonathan.
You wanna get out of here? My dorm room's nearby.
It's as easy as causing a distraction. My roommate's really drunk. Could you distract him while I get her out of here?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, buddy, aren't you in my econ class? Your econ class? Yeah.
Hey, you look tired. You wanna go back to the room? You can be the difference. Be more than just a bystander. It's what we do here at American University.
Keep in mind your safety and the well-being of others when assessing a situation and deciding what actions to take. You have options. If you don't feel safe directly,
It is so powerful because what it does is it gives you examples of when and how to maybe articulate utilizing one of these options. But let's talk then quickly about those 5, not too quickly, but about those 5 steps, okay? The 5 steps to intervention. Uh-oh.
Right. Troy, sorry.
The first one, I'll just talk, is going to be noticing an event. So they talked about when you're out and about and you're anywhere, you're at a party, you're at a friend's house, you're at the store, you're walking on campus, you're in your classroom. It's about noticing an event or taking in the world around you, okay? Being aware of your surroundings, okay? Looking around at people. The second step then,
You're getting there.
is recognizing that there's a problem. And with recognizing there's a problem, it's when you find yourself kind of doing that double glance. You know, you're hearing something, you're overhearing something, and you first notice it, and then you find that you're looking at it more. Okay, your gut, something's telling you there's something not right, right? There's something off, and you're probably correct about that. So then the third step is taking responsibility for acting. You have now determined there's something going on there. And because you know that, you have responsibility to do something about it. And what I encourage you to do, because this is hard, right? But ask yourself, if that was my family member, if that was my best friend, if that was my partner, if that was my loved one, what would I want someone else to do? Okay? And then the fourth step, deciding how to take responsibility. You know, utilizing those 3 Ds, which I'm going to get to. And then the fifth step would be the follow through. So how am I going to do this now? Okay, so I have to do something. What option am I going to do? What am I most comfortable with? Direct. Okay, some people are not comfortable with this, but some are. You see a situation and you walk right into it and you say, are you okay? Do you need some help? Or you turn to the other person and you say, would you mind backing off? Okay, it's directly going into the situation and attending to the problem that you see. Okay, it could be walking up and just trying to guide someone away. Okay, whether it's words or actions, but it's direct. Okay, it's in the moment. The other one is delegate. Let's talk about delegate first. Okay, delegate is when you feel uncomfortable, maybe putting yourself in that moment. Okay, you don't know how to do it, it scares you, and that's all okay. Okay, that's why there's this option called delegate, where you go to somebody else, whether it's an RA like in here, whether it's your instructor, whether it's a librarian, whether it's a counselor, okay, whether it's someone whose office door is open in the hallway, but you delegate to somebody else and say, I'm seeing something in the hall, or I saw something in the class, or I just overheard this conversation and I'm worried and I don't know what to do. Okay, you delegate to somebody else. Why is that person dressed as a clown? So what I did was I just distracted all of you. Big epiphany. Oh. That's part of the presentation, right? Especially after the movie opened this weekend. But it's a distraction because it's like totally unrelated, right? Completely unrelated, and now you're all like talking about clowns. But what I did was I distracted you in the moment. So you were all very intensely listening to me, and then I'm looking off and it's like, what's going on? Okay, so if there's an incident and you say something that's bizarre and it doesn't match the moment and it doesn't make sense, even if the surrounding people around that event that's taking place are looking, it's going to interrupt. It's going to distract for the moment. And then it might allow another opportunity for intervention. Okay? And no, there are no clowns, as my disclaimer. Okay? And then finally, that follow through is the moment. Okay? You've done your part. But remember, as we have said, okay, you are responsible for your choices and your decisions. But what happens from there is not up to you. If someone decides to take you up on the help you're offering or not, that is their choice. And they may come around at a different moment. But just always remember that. Okay?
All right, do we all feel prepared to be upstanders now? Yes, we know how to recognize an event, respond to an event. We know what the 3 Ds are because Amanda Misro is going to give you all a quiz when you get back to class, and or they're not getting back to class.
No, they're just getting their papers back.
We were teasing. We were teasing you.
I'm just messing. But it's important to look at, right, the different ways that we can intervene and be bystanders and hold each other accountable and provide support and community and safety. Resources on campus. Please pick one of these brochures up. Sharon and I, Gloria is here now, Emma is here, Teresa is here, any other counselors in the house? Shania over here. We are what's all called, here in this brochure you'll see that I'm listed as the confidential advisor. But really all of us in S202 in the Counseling and Career Development Center are confidential advisors. And so what that means is that any one of you can come if you are a survivor of sexual violence, sexual assault, domestic violence. You can come and share your experience with us, seek us out for support, come and learn about the resources on campus in a confidential space. That means I will not be reporting to the chief of police here on campus. I will not be reporting it to our Title IX investigator, so on and so forth. It's a safe space for you to come and to work through this, to process it, to learn more about your options here on campus, whether or not you choose to use those options. I made brief note of our Title IX coordinator, Dr. Joanne Jenkins. She is responsible for overseeing Any reports, so if you are someone that is interested in following through and in opening up an investigation, if you are someone that was sexually assaulted and you want to follow through and open up an investigation on campus, she is the individual that you can go and talk to about that. I want to back up a minute and say that your instructors are not confidential advisors. Your instructors are what we call responsible employees. And here in the library on September 21st, you'll probably hear more about what that means. If you tell your instructor, if you write in a paper to your instructor, if you put it in an email that you are, that you've been sexually assaulted, your instructor cannot maintain that in confidence. They have to report it to our Title IX coordinator. So please know that. If you're looking for a safe space to process your experience, to learn more about your options before you move forward, if that's what you choose to do, you come to us in the counseling office. If you write about it in a paper, send it in an email, talk to your instructor during office hour about it, they are a responsible employee. They are mandated to report it. So please know that. Other resources on campus, the Code of Conduct Office is also another option and a venue for students to formally move forward with procedures, okay? And they're located in the U building. You can also make a report, a formal report through our police departments, okay? Is that the website to our? That's okay. So all of this is briefly highlighted here in this pamphlet, but also on your student portal and on the Code of Conduct website. I think there's also a link from the counseling department. You can learn more about what your Title IX rights are as students and learn more about these services and their locations on campus. Please pick these up today before you leave or visit the websites, okay?
So what are some simple self-care measures? You've taken all of this in today, and then we've asked you to be a bystander, to be more than a bystander. We're asking you to be there for your friends, your family, your loved ones, whoever's disclosing to you. And maybe we're just talking about you and your experience. Your self-care and the way that you manage is so important, okay? It's important that even after today, hearing this, you really have listened. You've been a great audience. I can see you taking it in. I can see you reflecting on it. It's hard to hear these things, right? And it's so real. So please take time then to nurture yourself and to put your arms around yourself or find a safe space where you can do that. It's just really a cute picture, but maybe slow down. Maybe today's not the day for everything else, okay? Keep calm, try and be positive, okay? Talk to others if you need it, okay? But what works for you when you have a hard day? Make sure you employ those things after hearing a story or after having an experience, okay? We don't want you to not ever remember to take care of yourself at the end of the day as well. Okay. And so, on this note, we'd like to leave you with a quote before we ask for questions, of course, but just really a thoughtful one. But if you're reading this and you are a survivor, I would like to just say, just trust how you feel and know that you are right. That is the only thing that matters. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all of your attention. Thank you. We do have some time, so if you don't have to leave and if you have a question or comment that you'd like to ask, we do welcome that at this time.
Or you can come see us privately if you want. We'll hang out for a bit.
And please, if you are leaving, don't hesitate to come up front and grab some of these wonderful resources that we have for you. Okay, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.